Welcome to Fireside, where we sit down with successful founders every month in order to capture their stories, insights, and lessons learned along the way. Hit the follow button and subscribe to our newsletter for more, link in the description. Giorgio,
Tarek.
thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So you are the founder and the president of Americanflat.
That's correct.
Okay, if you correct me if I'm wrong, an e-commerce website that sells curated art and decor, and it makes $60 million a year and has about 100 employees worldwide.
Yeah, well, we are, can you guys hear me okay? Is it good? All right. Americanflat's a brand. We sell home decor products, and we actually originally started selling artwork, but then probably about 2 to 3 years ago, we really transitioned into the home decor market. So all products for your home. And actually, we don't really sell very much art anymore.
Okay.
So the business model has evolved over time from when it started about 12 years ago to now.
It's quite interesting because so I notice you're very goal driven. You go from goal to goal, and now you've started from a small business.
It's a very meandering path. It's not really, definitely not a straight line for sure.
Yeah, of course, it never is, but that's what makes a good story anyway. But what I was wondering is, as a goal driven person, I know that execution mode can be very focused. I was wondering if you've ever stopped along the journey to celebrate the small wins, and generally speaking, have you stopped one day and told yourself, wow, I've reached the ultimate goal, or I've made it?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that's an interesting question. I mean, I think the more that I learn, honestly, the less I know, and the more I'm like, wow, I really know nothing. Like, there's really so much more to learn. And the more advanced that we get, and the more the business evolves over time, the more staff we have in the company, the more I'm realizing that there's just different roles that I need to play as a CEO. Initially when I first got started, it was really just me, and it was I was really just in a co-working space. It was actually my dad's office. And I was just selling artwork online. That was really sort of the first model. And now we have more than 100 people. I just checked that we have 102 people on our team right now. And my role as the owner and as the CEO is really to drive the vision, but I can't do everything anymore. And what I want to talk a little bit about is also the culture, and how the business will only evolve if I really evolve the whole culture of the business. And that's something that I had no familiarity with even just a couple of years ago. And so it's something that I'm really focused on right now, as opposed to marketing tactics or doing something like that, or should we go on Amazon? Should we sell on Target? Should we try to go into brick and mortar? There's all sorts of different challenges that we're having right now, and that's sort of what makes it fun. But it is constantly an evolving process.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot, that the role of a CEO changes, especially when the CEO is also the founder. You start from, yourself, just you and your computer, and then it goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that you were, when you were growing up, you wanted to be a business owner.
Sure.
That caught my attention because it's a specific thing to want as a kid.
Yeah.
So were you influenced by...
Sure.
It's a good thing, but
Yeah.
it's also specific. So were you influenced by someone, or?
Yeah, for sure. So my dad was a small business owner when I was growing up, and I later found out, actually, after we did genealogy research, that I'm actually a 5th generation business owner. So my dad was a business owner. His dad was a small business owner, then his dad was also a small business owner, and then his dad as well. So it comes from many different generations, but the business has never been passed down from one generation to the next. And so so I guess in a way, it's something that I kind of always wanted to do. When I graduated from college, I wanted to start a business on my own, but I was really motivated by the fact that a lot of my friends at the time were all getting into banking. It was around 2007. It was right before the great financial crash, and in 2008, 2009. And all my friends, they were saying, oh, we're going to be able to make $150,000, $200,000 a year. And I was like, what is this? What is this? What is this opportunity? And so I became very motivated to try to pursue a corporate job right afterwards. And this ended up being a very good experience, but I think that it took me off a little bit of that path that I kind of initially wanted to go on, and one where I see a lot of young people becoming entrepreneurs right now, and I think that they're pursuing the right path. They don't really necessarily have to go to this corporate job before they actually pursue something on their own.
I'm interested in the JP Morgan investment banking experience, but I wanted to know what happened a little before. So we were mentioning the childhood, growing up, seeing your dad as a founder, business owner, fifth generation. And you then decide to go to college to study investment banking, or?
Yeah, so I went to college, and actually I thought initially I wanted to get into advertising. So I figured that the best major for me to pursue was to do psychology. In the US, you don't study necessarily the thing that you're actually going to pursue later on. You take what's called like a liberal arts education, and so you can study Greek, or you can study math, or you can study all sorts of things, and then you eventually end up finding a job, and they train you sort of on the job, right? So you don't necessarily have to do the thing that you decide to study in college, or decide that you want to pursue when you're 18 years old. So I studied psychology, and during college I had, sort of by accident, started a number of different side projects that I thought were really kind of fun. One was actually a video production business, and so there were a lot of groups around campus that were doing like dance troupes, or maybe they were doing big conferences or something along those lines, and so they needed a videographer. And so the first job that I had actually was hiring students to film these programs. I would cut them up. I would edit them. I would put them on DVDs, and I would sell them back to the people in the group. So this is like, I'm aging myself right now actually, but yeah, I had a DVD replica machine in my room, and I was like copying DVDs and writing on them, and so very, primitive way to start to sell these video programs.
How far did your college business go? Or also the lessons you've learned from that?
Yeah, no, I think it was great. I mean, it was sort of my first experience, I would say, in managing teams, and really like understanding the value of managing people and sort of organizing business. Like, how do you negotiate with a customer? How do you do QuickBooks, right? How do you account for your profit and loss? What are your cogs involved in the business, and things along those lines. So it was a wonderful experience, and it was just, and I think more than anything, it was just fun, right? So I was really having like a good time doing it. And so it was really sort of the first thing that I did in terms of pursuing in terms of pursuing business later on. But it was really just a fun thing.
Nice. And so, okay, you're about to graduate. You took out a loan, if I understood well, for your college studies.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the U.S. college
proper one
is very expensive. Yeah,
okay.
It's very expensive. Yeah.
And then you're lured. I don't know if you're lured into the lucrative investment banking world.
Definitely lured.
Tell us more about that part.
Yeah, definitely lured. So it was 2007. We had a lot of recruiters on campus. I got wind that you could make, sort of all this money, and I was like, wow! I just became enamored by the whole idea of working on Wall Street, and I'd seen all the movies, I'd seen Wall Street, I'd seen Boiler Room, all the different all the different movies out there, and so I really became enamored by this whole idea, and so I started working on Wall Street, and very quickly realized that this was like not a good fit for me at all. I ended up doing about 2 to 3 years there in a couple of different groups. And now that I look back, there's a lot of experiences that I had that I was like, wow, this is something that was really, really valuable for me. But in retrospect, I really should have. It was a great experience, but after about a couple of years, it was time to move on.
So did you get what you wanted out of it? Did it help you pay back your loans?
Actually, not really, no. Because actually, so when you have $100,000 salary, I mean, it seems like a lot, especially 20 years ago, it seemed like a lot. But then actually with all the taxes and all the stuff that kind of came out of it, it ended up like not really being a great, really, I mean, and then the cost of living in New York and all these sort of other things, it just ended up being, it ended up sort of not being the best, the best fit. I think one thing with entrepreneurship in general is you have this ability to scale yourself. And especially now, like with all the digital tools and things like that, there's so many opportunities to be able to scale your business, even as a single proprietary owner, that it just makes things just so much more impressive, I'd say, than being able to pursue even just a lucrative career. The thing that happens a lot on Wall Street is like you start working and you're like, I'm just going to work here for 2 years and then I'm going to leave. And then after 2 years, you get your bonus. You're like, well, next year I'm going to make more money. And then the next year you're like, oh, okay, well, I got a better apartment. I'm not moving into a shared space with one of my friends right now. Like I'm in a 1-bedroom. Like this is nice. And then you get the dog, and then you get married, and you get the kid, and you get all this stuff. And so it just becomes like more and more attractive until you become a managing director, and then that's sort of the end of the end of the road. And you can make a lot of money if that's the right fit. But I do say that like a lot of people in my analyst class, they probably right now is probably only about a tenth or a fifth of the people that actually got started that are still there. So
Wow.
yeah.
Well, it is called the rat race for a reason. And I don't know who it is who said that two things are the most addictive: heroin and a paycheck.
Yeah.
So that's literally how it works. Okay, so you told me offline that you were not good at this job.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, I think that there's a big element for me. I love, like, what I really love about business is really growing the business. And I felt that I was hired as an analyst, and the role is really to do a specific function and nothing really kind of beyond that. And so right now in my own company, I really try to encourage everybody at sort of every level to really grow within their business and to really make improvements to their own work. Because at the time, it was really like, you are supposed to do this. You're supposed to do this financial model. You're supposed to do this PowerPoint presentation. You're supposed to do this, sort of a client meeting, do all these things. But then in reality, like, there's not that much room for improvement and creativity. Also, the thing is, when I was very young, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, right? So I have a lot of strengths, I think, in certain areas, but in other areas, I really lack. Mostly in the areas that are required for investment banking, I would say. So like financial modeling and math and things like that is like, for me, now in retrospect, I'm like, oh my God, we actually just completed our first acquisition for the business on last Friday. And I just remember going through the whole funds flow and where the money went, and all of a sudden I was like, man, I used to do this all the time. I was like, thank God I'm not doing this anymore. So it's really nice.
You can pay lawyers to do that, or investment
now I have
bankers,
a CFO who actually loves this now. So so that's sort of
passion.
business. Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't have to be yours. So now you're starting to look into quitting or doing something on your own, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so at the time I was I was 26 or 27, and I was like completely fed up with my job at the time. I remember like going home and just being kind of grumpy all the time, and just thinking like, you know what, like I really just don't like this very much. And I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was like, why don't you just quit? And it just never even occurred to me, right, that I could just leave, right? I could just walk out. And so I was starting to think like, okay, what can I do next? And my idea is that I could start a business. And the original idea was to start a business that would sell artwork to bachelors who just moved into their first homes, who wanted to impress girls for their houses. So obviously a very niche market, right? And turned out that was not a good idea at all, right? That was really not a good idea at all. And so I left with this idea in mind. With this like niche market, very, very overconfident, of course, and so I ended up leaving the job. I had done a little bit of work. I had a website and things like that, and then I remember launching the website, and then I got 3 sales sort of the first day. One was from a frat brother of mine that I had put on the email list, right? One was an anonymous customer. I still don't know who it was, and the other was my mom. Right, so it was three customers on the first day, and then literally crickets for like 6 weeks afterwards. So like not a single sale. I remember it was like October of 2020. October of 2011. I remember, and there was like really just not. The business was not off to a roaring start, and so I saw my bank account kind of dwindling at that point. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so I found a couple of other side hustles on the side to kind of keep things afloat while things got going. So.
Okay, so well, I'm interested in how things got going. So you started doing things on the side, which means your focus was split. Yeah. You're not 100% focused on the business. That's usually not something good, but it seems that it worked out for you.
Yeah. So at the time, really just sort of what happened was basically by happenstance. I was taking a number of kind of odd jobs. I would say like kind of like even now, just like kind of like consulting jobs. I would go on TaskRabbit and I would find kind of like odd jobs. I would also I had like this little Airbnb business on the side where now it's illegal even in New York, but at the time was sort of in a kind of in a gray area where I would rent an apartment and then I would furnish it and then I would rent the apartment above to people on Airbnb who were coming in. And at the time, I think I had like 5 or 6 apartments in New York. And now it's like very strictly forbidden to do that, but at the time was a little bit of kind of gray area. And so I had this Airbnb business on the side, kind of to keep things going while Americanflat was kind of going up, and where I was trying to find what I was trying to find was product market fit, What I really didn't have was product market fit, right, or distribution. And so that didn't really happen until probably about 6 months to 12 months afterwards.
Okay. And how did that happen?
Yeah, so good, very good question. So we ended up getting a little bit of press initially, and what happened is that one of the flash sale sites, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a number of sites like Groupon or Living Social and a couple of other sites that were kind of out there at the time. And what ended up happening was that one of those sites contacted us, and they said, "Do you want to sell your canvas products on this site?" And all of our products, the business model was that we would have a network of artists, we would license their work, so they would actually design the work on their own. We would take a photograph of their art or a digital copy of their art, and then we would sell it on all these websites. That was sort of the original business model, or our website. And so we ended up, what we ended up doing was we ended up partnering with a number of these flash sale sites to sell our products through these flash sale sites. So there was fab.com. There was, even in Australia, I think that there was another site called Catch of the Day. Are there any Australians here, by the way? Yeah, Catch of the Day. There's another one called Temple and Webster. There's one in South Africa also called City Mob. There was like all sorts. Superbalist was another one. So there was all sorts of websites all around the world that was kind of copying this flash sale model. And so what we ended up doing was we ended up going from one flash sale site in the U.S. to, I think at the end it was probably like 30 or 40 different flash sale sites all around the world. And what we did was we had printers located in each of the different geographies. And so what we would do is we would have a flash sale for 3 days on the Groupon of South Africa. And then we found a printer in South Africa, and then we were shipping all the posters that we were selling and all the canvas art to all the different customers that were buying it on the website. And so that is really when we kind of found product market fit. Also, the art that we were selling initially was really bad. Like, customers just didn't like it. And so we ended up, it was something I thought was nice, but which actually was like another really great lesson is like what I like sometimes is not what my customer likes. And so that's why I'm more and more focused now on really trying to figure out like what our customer wants, what can we do to add more value to our customer all the time. And I think that's just in general like a very important business principle that I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't focus on enough.
So I'm curious if they were not liking the product and still you were able to sell so much of it after 6 months.
Well, yeah. So 6 months was sort of the initial bit. We found, I mean, just to get into specifics, I mean, we found that people really resonated towards artwork that was city related. So, like for example, we had these posters of different cities around the world or national parks, and they were done in sort of a vintage style. And that was the artist that actually we ended up selling the most of. We actually still do some calendars and a couple of other different products with the same artist today. But we're not really selling that. We're not selling the posters really anymore, just because the business model just doesn't work for us in the size that we are right now. But that was really the kind of the start of really trying to find the product market fit. It was really this like style of art that people resonated with, because if people were in South Africa, they love to get Durban, or they love to get Cape Town art, or Johannesburg, and people weren't really representing those cities as much as sort of like local artists. And so that trend really kind of started propelling our business, but then also the business of a lot of the artists that we ended up working with as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so you've reached product market fit. How much was the company making by then?
Yeah, I would say it was probably, I mean, the business was much smaller, and it was probably 2 or 3 people at the time. So we were really not that big. I think we were probably at around $2 to $3 million in revenue, but our margins were very high. Okay. So it's a little bit different. But the thing is also, which was great about our business, is that we had a positive working capital cycle. So what happened is that we ended up selling the product, then we were printing it later on. We didn't have to pay the printers for 30 days, and then we'd actually get the money within 15 days or 14 days. So, which is what the contract that we had with a lot of the flash sale sites, because they were getting the money immediately. They were paying us after we fulfilled the order, and then I didn't have to pay the printer for 30 days. So I didn't have to take on debt or raise money in order to grow the business at the time. And so that positive working capital cycle really worked very, very well for us in the initial stages of the business.
Okay, so you've reached 2 to 3 million. You're 2 to 3 people. Product market fit, check. What was the next challenge?
Well, I think, yeah, so what happened is that, I mean, things change in business all the time. So what happened was a lot of these flash sale sites, and I kind of knew this at the time, but I didn't really want to like say it out loud, is that a lot of these flash sale sites were losing money. So, I mean, when's the last time someone bought something on Groupon? Like, has anyone bought anything in the last year on Groupon? I haven't. right? So like these sites, like basically they were funded by a lot of venture capitalists. And what happened was is that their model just didn't work. It was just too difficult to kind of cycle through all the inventory. Our product worked very well, but it wasn't one of the top selling products, I would say. I think some of the more branded products were really good. And so the business model was just didn't work. And so around 2014, 2015, a lot of these sites started shutting down. There was also another thing that kind of happened is that the dollar ended up becoming very strong against these foreign currencies kind of around the same time. And so when the Australian dollar and the US dollar were at parity in 2013, 2014, it was great for us because we were selling posters for $2 and then we were making posters for $2 and selling them for 18, right? So it was like a huge margin on the product. But so the business ended up kind of declining around that time, and I was looking for other ways at that point to really build the business again. It was like sort of just kind of just humming through. A lot of our clients were going bankrupt, and we just needed a sort of a new distribution system at that point.
Okay. Well, first of all, good job on noticing that your distributors are failing.
Well, when your bank account starts to go down, you're like, okay, well.
Okay, so how did you? What did you do after that? Did you start? Did you change the business model?
So a little bit. So what we ended up doing was I was walking to work one day, and I just happened to be listening to a podcast, and it was like two guys who were living in the Philippines, and they were selling products on Amazon, and they were selling like all sorts of different sort of random products. They were doing FBA, and I was listening to them. And I was like, well, I'm kind of doing something kind of similar to that. Like, this isn't like that special. Like, they're importing products from China. They're landing them in California. They're shipping them to the warehouses. They're doing PPC. I was like, oh, it's like kind of similar to some of the stuff that we're already doing. Let me give it a shot. So I started kind of looking around for different products. I was like, oh, maybe some storage containers, something like this. Like, and I was just like kind of playing around, like a little bit of like a side project. And at the time, I had started working with a guy based in Long Island. A company based in Long Island that ended up supplying us because some of the flash sale sites were like, we don't want to sell the poster. We want to sell the poster and the frame together, right? We don't want to just sell the poster. So I was like, okay, let me find a guy who can do that. So I found a guy in Long Island who could do this. And he sort of became a kind of like a mentor of mine in a way. And when I started selling products on Amazon, I was like, all right, let's put some picture frames up there and just regular picture frames. And he was like, well, you got to do the 11 by 14 picture frame. You got to do the document frame. You got to do the flag case frame, the business license frame. I didn't even know there were these many frames. I had literally no idea how many frames there were out there. And so he kind of taught me everything I needed to know because he was my supplier at the time. And so we just started putting frames up on Amazon. And what we ended up figuring out, just kind of almost by accident at this point, was we ended up figuring out that a lot of the frames that were being sold online were breaking, and a lot of the people who were selling frames in the market to a lot of retailers like Bed Bath & Beyond or Walmart, they were bringing them in specifically for the retailers and then packaging them to ship online. And so the costs were very prohibitive to sell them online. So we ended up becoming sort of the first kind of online retailer to sell picture frames, and that business really kind of just took off in just a couple of months. And so we started investing a lot more into buying inventory and then bringing our first containers in from China overseas, and then just really kind of just selling the products even more and more. And that's very similar to what our business model is today. And that was, I'd say that's probably about nine years ago, eight years ago, I'd say at this point. Our frames don't break when you ship them. We have very low damage rates. They have the same glass that you have in your iPhone. It's tempered glass, and the packaging is done in a way where we use minimal amounts of packaging, and we're always improving the product on a regular basis to make sure that it's damage free and that it's lightweight, and we're selling them selling them affordably for our customers.
Okay, so that was about 8 years ago that you
say it was about
shifted.
About 8 years.
And that's essentially what took you from where you were back then to now.
Yeah, so I'd say that, so we ended up getting at that point, we're probably doing about 2.5 million revenue at that point, and then over the course of many years, like we grew I think to 20 million, and we're about 20 million for about 2 years, and then COVID hit. And then everyone was at home and everyone's like shopping for their home products. And so I thought initially, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be awful for the business. How are we going to keep the business afloat? It was like very, very scary. And then like really all of a sudden, just like the sales just started just like increasing, just kind of like crazy around April, May. And it was really good and bad. And I'll tell you why. Like I was very interested in capturing all the demand. But having so much demand like that really just wore out the business. And we had a warehouse at the time in California, and it just became like just a complete operational mess. We were just not prepared for all the growth, and actually it almost bankrupted the company at some point. So.
Okay, I want to know more about that.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Bankrupt the company? Sure, sign me up. Tell me more.
Yeah, so I ended up, so back in 2019, we had one warehouse. We were using a 3PL. So basically the idea is that you can either, so when you bring in product from overseas, so this is a very traditional e-commerce business, right? So when you bring in product from overseas, you have to store it somewhere. So we'd store it generally in either a company that specifically focuses on storing e-commerce inventory and shipping it out, or you just do it yourself, right? And so we worked with this company for a long time. They did a pretty decent job for us, but we were growing well beyond what their expectations were. And at the time, it was just kind of this insatiable demand from Amazon and customers purchasing our product more online than in stores. And then what ended up happening was that I said, oh, you know what? I'm actually going to invest in our own warehouse in California, and we're going to start doing our own fulfillment from California, knowing nothing about fulfillment, knowing nothing about warehousing, knowing nothing about labor laws in California. And everybody told me, don't do it, and they were all right. So in retrospect, but it was still an amazing learning experience. But yeah, so go ahead, Seth.
How did you avoid bankruptcy?
Yeah, so well, I mean, we weren't so close, but it was definitely very trying. So what happened is that in May of I guess it was May of 2021, right? Yeah, May of 2021, we started getting complaints that there was mold on some of our products, and we're like, mold? Well, all of our products are stored indoors. Like how could we be getting mold on some of our products? So I ended up going to the warehouse. I was living in New York at the time, and what ended up happening was that the warehouse manager ended up storing a lot of the goods outside because he had no more room, and he was really trying to hide like a lot of the problems that we were having. And so I just arrived, and we had literally it was like a football field of inventory outside, and like some of it, like it was, I mean, I could show you guys photos, but it was really a shocking sight. And so what I learned was that if you have a warehouse and you have that many employees, it's really important to be there, right? And you would think obviously it's important to be there, but the management style. It's important to hire really great people, but also supervising is really important thing too. And we were just really not prepared. And also there's other things too, like during COVID, no one really wanted to travel. I mean, if you guys can remember, it was kind of a harrowing time. So we were just glad the warehouse was open and we were still fulfilling orders. So operationally things looked pretty good. But once you really kind of dug under the curtain, we had a lot of problems. And so we had to bring in sort of a special ops team to kind of come into the warehouse. We had expanded out to an additional space. At the time, we were spending almost $100,000 a month in warehouse space, and then with employees and things like that. So it became very, very difficult. Our warehouse manager quit on the spot. It was a very, very, very challenging time. But I look back and in retrospect, and I realized that I made a couple of mistakes. And really, the first one is that if something is not really in your competitive advantage, don't invest in it in-house, right? So operationally, we were very good, but operations is not our competitive advantage, right? So investing in operations is really not something that we should be bringing in-house. We should be outsourcing it, right? Because one guy can do a better job than another guy. If one guy's not doing a good job, we can very easily change warehouses. And right now we have a warehouse that we're decently happy with, right? And then the second is just the oversight, right? So we had growing a business, I would say, really from 5 million, at least in e-commerce, really from 5 million to 20 million is really difficult because you have to keep investing in working capital, but you also have to grow the team, right? So a lot of your money is going out on investing in the team, investing in working capital, paying taxes also. And it becomes if you're profitable, and so it becomes more and more challenging, kind of in that one specific area, and that's kind of the area that we were in when sort of this warehouse warehouse fiasco happened. So, but anyway, it was a good learning experience and one of the war stories. So
Yeah, it's really challenging for a business to know when something should be delegated or outsourced,
Yeah.
and when they can do it in-house.
Yeah.
And especially when you're in the entrepreneur founder mindset, you want to do everything yourself.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. It is difficult. Yeah. And that's, I would say like now, like a very good segue into where I'm at right now in the business, because now with 100 people, it's extremely difficult at this point to do everything myself. Even like last year, I was kind of finding myself at a point where we had problems with our inventory. We had too much inventory. We had bought in a bunch of products that weren't selling on a fast enough clip. Our storage costs were getting really high again. The market was sort of kind of coming down after kind of the COVID peak, and housing really hadn't really sort of recovered, and people right now are not moving as much as they were in the past. We bought a lot of the wrong inventory at the time. Definitely changes with the team, and what I realized was that I was the one who was kind of still like this like little like I would say like kind of running a small business but with sort of a medium-sized team, right? I was the one who was like, hey, you can't do this, or hey, you can't do this, or this, and so at that point, like I discovered a little bit more. I was like really thinking a lot about how do I grow the team in a more sustainable way, and that's kind of where I came upon. Learning a lot about the Toyota manufacturing system and this concept of lean and creating a lean culture. And the whole idea of lean is continuous improvement. So it's not just you are continuously improving your job, but everybody on the team is continuously improving their jobs too, right? And it really has transformed our business in even just a couple of months in terms of people focusing on how they can make their job more efficient, as opposed to me telling them how they can make their jobs more efficient, and understanding where all the waste is in the business. Organizations are just so highly dysfunctional. I mean, ours was the most dysfunctional. And there's, and even though we were growing as a business and we're profitable every year that we grow the business, I recognize more and more how our business is just so dysfunctional. And so having these lean principles, what we do is we really try to educate and give back to our employees, and everyone is really invested in how do they make their jobs better, how do they eliminate the waste within their jobs, how do they identify the waste within their jobs, and how they can make things more efficient, basically, and not just time efficient, but just better, right? And it's not just me who's like going around trying to figure all these things out. It's really everybody on the team, and holding our senior leadership accountable for making sure that everyone on the team is doing things in a much more productive way.
Yeah.
So.
It's also interesting how your role as CEO, founder, and then now president and founder, you're starting yourself, and now you have 100 people. I'm interested in knowing how your personal role has changed, and you seem to have adapted quite well, because it's also known that founders are not necessarily good CEOs down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of founders. I think there's definitely an element of caring more. In a way, it's like it's like a lot of people say it's like your baby. It's like, but I don't know if that's necessarily how I see it. But again, like I care a lot, right? If I were to hire a CEO, like maybe at this point they would do a very, very good job. Or maybe they would do a better job than me. But I definitely have this element of caring and making sure like things like, even when things are really, really rough, like even when we had this warehouse fiasco, I made sure that things were going to stay afloat, and eventually the tides did turn, and we were able to get through it. But at the same time too, like I think that the job definitely evolves, right? Right now, we're just so focused on how do we create like a really great culture within the team, and how the team, how do I elevate that culture on a regular basis, and how do I make sure that the people who are on the team have that cultural feeling, and they're really focused on improving their job and efficiencies and making their job much better. And how do I educate our employees more and more? And so that's something that I'm like mostly focused on. It's mostly being a cheerleader and just encouraging people and leaving voice messages like, "Oh man, you're doing a great job," or "I want to hear your feedback," or I'd really like to hear more and more about what you have to say about that. Like I talked about before about having customers and really trying to solicit feedback from customers and thinking, "Oh, I thought I knew how to do that well." We have a concept where we think about internal customers and external customers, right? External customers are those who are buying our product, right? And those are really important. But internal customers are people who are receiving our reports, who are getting paid, who are our vendors also, right? So making sure like people are getting paid. And so I need to make sure like all of those processes are done in a very, very efficient way in order to make everything go well. Like we pay all of our vendors on time. We pay all of our employees on time. We have 100 people, right? So doing payroll is challenging, right? So, making sure like all the waste is eliminated and all the processes are done really, really well, and making sure that we're soliciting feedback from all those people on a regular basis gives us a competitive advantage. And I think that our business, because we've adopted these lean principles, like really the businesses that adopt lean across the whole organization, I would say, are multitudes better than really any other business that's out there. Because you have literally one person, the CEO, who's making all these decisions, and then now we have a whole team, we have a whole army of people who are making decisions, making their jobs better. I come in and things have changed all the time. People are making decisions on their own without having to go up to a higher up for approvals and things like that. So it's really right now, like my job is just really focused on having this amazing culture, getting people really motivated on the team, and how do you elevate that culture, right? As opposed to focusing specifically on what sort of like marketing tactics is trendy. Should we go on TikTok shops? Should we be selling on Meta stores? Like, what's our product development? What's our product development process like, and things along those lines. So I know that if we have a great culture, those things will be elevated. And we also have a morning meeting now that really focuses a lot on that. And I say now, I was like, you can invite anyone over to our company. You can invite any competitor over to our company. They can see all of our plans or whatever. They can copy whatever they want, but we are light years ahead because we are so much more efficient than everyone else that we'll be able to take away market share from all these other companies. Yeah.
That's harder to copy.
It's harder to copy. You
Yeah.
can't. It's impossible. Yeah, it's impossible to copy our culture. Yeah.
You said you've reached today's levels of $60 million of revenue a year.
We did $60 million last year. Yeah.
Last year. But you
But
said
January we did $7 million. So
Okay.
hopefully
so
we'll
you
do
should
better.
be
Yeah.
growing. But my question is, you said you've never sought outside funding. Well, first of all, does it mean you had inside funding? And second of all, or no funding at all?
Yeah. Well, that goes back a little bit. So the bottom line is we had no funding at all. We had so I was talking about the positive working capital cycle in order to grow the business initially, and that really lasted, I'd say, until we hit probably about 10 million or so in revenue. And then at that point, really, we were taking debt from banks, basically.
So credit,
which is what we still have that right now, right? So we have a credit line with Chase. Right now, they're our primary banker. I think it should be a little bit bigger than what they gave us, but we don't really need it in terms of the amount that we're growing at the moment. So that's not really like a constraint that we have, but it's always been taking out debt, and it's challenging. Like the most challenging, I think, is really from that like 10 million to say like 30 million range, especially for an e-commerce business. The SaaS is totally different. So if you have different business models, it's totally different. But as a brand, really that 10 to 30 million is really challenging because you are taking on more debt all the time. You are trying to grow the business, you're trying to grow the team, and then you have all sorts of other challenges and things like that along the lines too. So that was really the big challenge. So no, I never took any outside funding. At first, when I first started the business, I had gotten connected with a couple of VCs, but no one returned my phone calls at all. So it was sort of a non-issue. No one liked the artwork for Bachelor idea, so it was so it didn't really resonate with them. They were probably right.
They're lost though. Look at you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I like having a bootstrap business. I think a lot of e-commerce businesses probably should be bootstrapped, I would say. I know it is very, very challenging, but there's a lot of businesses that got outside funding that really just didn't really, I would say, like probably need it. I mean, you look at like the Caspers of the world, or a lot of those other businesses that kind of came up like around like kind of the mid 2010s, and a lot of those businesses right now are kind of dead in the water at this point. So yeah, there's a lot of businesses out there that probably should not have taken outside funding, and a lot of money spent. I mean, look at all the flash sale sites as well, right? So they took all outside funding, and I don't think that I think outside funding really should be very, very well thought out. consult a lawyer, really know what you're doing. I think a lot of founders probably take outside funding and they don't really know what they're doing at that point, and it becomes really, really challenging to be able to navigate that. A lot of what I learned, when I started the business is really I learned a lot from the essays from Paul Graham. I read pretty much all of them. If you guys haven't read them, I would highly recommend that. But at the same time too, like a lot of the people who are writing advice out there for startup founders are VCs, right? And it kind of makes sense. Like that's the audience, right? So they want to attract great startup founders. All they want to do is put chips into different buckets. A lot of bootstrap businesses, like there's really no incentive, I would say, to advise other startup founders. I try to do it because I think the small business community is a really important way to kind of give back to a community. You have a small business, you're involved in the community, you are hiring people. It's not sort of this like fly-by-night business. And there's a lot of challenges, I would say, for bootstrap businesses. You have a lot of businesses out there that are VC backed, that are paying really high salaries. You're competing with a lot of them for the best talent out there, and so there are a lot of challenges there. But I'm really big on small business. So yeah.
The childhood dream.
Mm-hmm.
What does the future hold for Americanflat 1 and for Giorgio 2?
Yeah, so let's see. So for Americanflat, we just came back from our leadership meetup. We had it in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago. We were pretty lucky because we were just south of where some of the fires were, and it was really great. The whole team's really motivated at this point. Like I mentioned to you before, like the culture is really like the most important thing for us right now. It's something that I'm really focused on and really trying to instill this what we call like a lean culture in our business. And so that's really, I think, the most important thing. I don't think that the metrics for revenue or sales or all those things are really the most important thing for the business right now. It's really like how we feel within the organization and how excited and all the improvements that the company and the people are making. Because I know that in sort of that indirect way, like if they're focused on making these improvements, the business is overall just going to get so much better. So if everyone is doing all of that and we're hiring the best people and we're finding roles for people who are not, or coaching people that are kind of struggling in that way, I think that our business is really going to grow. I think that in 5 years we could do $1 billion in sales, but it's not like the revenue is not really like the goal anymore. Mm-hmm. It's really the focus on really trying to elevate the culture, I would say, and really trying to get the business going. But I mean, if once we hit $500 million a year in sales, like I don't know if there's going to be new challenges as a CEO. I think that this has sort of been very pivotal in terms of like the cultural awareness, and we're just really trying to elevate people and to create this amazing remote culture that we have. So,
yeah, it's very well. This is an important point too. You're fully remote.
Yeah.
Okay, it
Mm-hmm.
makes it even more challenging to have a proper culture that is shared among everybody.
Yeah. No, I mean, one aspect of the business, we used to have an office in New York, and then during COVID, I just couldn't get anyone to come back into the office. It was really challenging. I mean, I also was not going back into the office, so it was challenging to kind of get everyone. And at that time, we had hired a lot of people from overseas. And so we have about 20% of our team, which is based in the U.S., and then we hire a lot of people in Latin America because it's sort of on the Eastern Standard Time Zone, and we have people in Europe and also people in Asia too. So we have a fully remote team right now, mm-hmm. We're very happy with the way that the team is operating remotely, and the morning meeting that we have every day is really like a great way to kind of instill the culture on everyone. Yeah.
Is that a morning meeting with 100 people on it?
We have, yeah. So this morning, I think we had 82 people.
Seriously?
Yeah, 82 people on the call. And every day we have a different person hosting the morning meeting. And we go through what our purpose is. We go through, we talk about any mistakes that we made or learning opportunities. We talk about what we're grateful for. We choose a couple people to share what we're really grateful for today. We nominate one person every day as our lean thinker of the day. So someone who's really sort of instilling some of the values within our business. And every day is a different opportunity for someone to host the morning meeting and to become a leader within our team. And that's one of the things that we've been doing, and it's been working working really well. It's sort of a self-running organization at this point.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but it's great that everything is just kind of operating in this way. We even do stretching in the morning meeting too. It's the way that sort of the Japanese automakers kind of started. They do stretching to prevent injuries, but we still do stretching because they're sitting down all day. It's like it's a great opportunity to do some stretching. So,
Would you do anything different if you were to go back in time?
Oh wow, that's a good question. I don't know. I think the journey's been amazing. It's I always think of the quote like the Patagonia founder. He always says like, once you reach the top, you realize there's nothing there, right? So for me, it's like it's difficult to say, but the journey's been really a lot of fun. I would say in general, I'm still having a lot of fun, a lot of frustrations, and a lot of challenges. In the business, but it has really been a lot of fun, and I love doing it with people that I get to see on sort of a regular basis. I think remote to me is really great because you never get to a place where your colleagues annoy you, right? So and then when you get to see them, you're so happy to see them, right? And then after 3 or 4 days, it's like, all right, okay, I gotta hop, right? I gotta go back to my house. So I think that it's a really great. It's been a really great experience, and I don't know. I mean, I think that there's obviously been a lot of challenges and things that I would have prepared for differently, but overall, I'm very, very happy with where we are right now.
Cool. It is about the journey because at least you have something to look forward to every time. It's even psychologically speaking, if you're only thinking about the destination, once you get there, there's nothing anymore, and it's a little depressing. So it's much better to just focus on the journey. Celebrate the wins along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Thank you, Giorgio. We're going to get questions from Q&A.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, great.
I'm done. So
okay, great. Okay. All right. Any questions?
Hi, Giorgio, and thank you so much. It was really insightful, especially because I'm also a former investment banker and I also have some e-commerce experience, so I could really share your pain with the warehouse story because I've been in Vietnam trying to copy Amazon in 2011 it was, and we had huge problems with warehouses, and there were always people checking the inventory, so it was a nightmare. But what I find quite interesting in your case is like your whole journey that you were mentioning, how you then pivoted towards putting culture above revenues, which is also quite interesting because I'm an investor as well, a private equity investor, and we always, obviously, on every board meeting, every month, what you always look for is the numbers, and the numbers. Yeah. And so my question to you is, how did you actually instill this culture? When did you realize that you should put this above all and that this will eventually also bring your revenues up, right? Because if people feel well, they work well, they are happy, and they perform better. Yeah. It would be interesting for me to learn from you how you came to that realization, how you did it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to summarize, like at what point did I realize that culture was really more important than revenues? And I really want to say that it was probably, I would say, about a year ago, and it really grew out of just, I would say, like a very deep frustration with where the business was going and how difficult it was to run the business on a regular basis. So there was just so many things breaking. There were fires really going kind of everywhere during the business. Too much inventory here. Why are we, not selling on this platform here? What's, Amazon, suspended these listings here. And I was just involved in all of these different things. And I was like, actually just yelling at people like on Zoom all the time. Like, hey, what's going on here? What's happening here? What's that? And it's like, it was just very, very challenging. And losing money here and stuff like that. So I started thinking to myself, I was like, how can I fix this? And what I realized, I came across this book by an author. His name is Paul Akers. It's called The 2-Second Lean. And he talked about how he was having some very similar frustrations in his business, which is very similar business to mine. And what ended up happening, I ended up reading this book, The 2-Second Lean, and it was how to build a really great lean culture within your business. And so I started reading this book, and it was really eye-opening. And he had the same frustrations that I had, and he was able to really kind of turn his business around by adopting a lean culture within his business. And this last last November, I went with him, and I think it was like 16 or 17 other people, and we ended up going to Japan and visiting a number of different manufacturers. We visited some schools to understand how the lean culture is really embedded within the Japanese culture. And that was really insightful for me, because I was like, wow, this lean culture really makes things so much more efficient and easy within the Japanese culture. And how can I adopt that within my business? And so I came back really energized. It was just like, it was really very, very insightful. And now, I'm even skewing more towards making sure like our culture is really lean, and we're giving back to the customer as much as possible, right? So if we have inefficiencies in our business, that's an overhead expense that we're incurring that the customer is ending up paying for, right? So if I can really focus on making sure that every department within our business has the most efficiencies, our customer ends up winning, because we can lower our price for our customers, we can make a more quality product, we can deliver our product faster, and we can really deliver more value for our customers. So it's kind of an indirect way, like focusing so much on revenue or so much on profits, or just trying to raise margins more and more, right? It really can only get you so far. And for me, it got to a place where I was just completely exhausted, right? So it was really a nice learning experience to really kind of shift that focus more towards having a really great. And obviously, you still have to focus on those things, right? Like I can't just say like, oh, culture is like the most important thing, and not really, if our sales are going down, not draw attention to it, right? But there's always something that I think that we can do in our market in order to really adapt to what our culture, our customers are really focused on, and really trying to improve the culture. So, yeah. Did I answer your question? Oh,
Totally. Thank you
okay,
so
great.
much.
Hey, first I want to thank you for the very good lecture, etc. The question from me is, you've been working in a frame business for like a decade, right? How not to get bored with doing one and the same thing for many years? What gets you motivated?
Yeah. So I guess the question is, how do you stay motivated by working in the same industry for a long time? So right now, actually, we are very focused on where the next phase of the business is, and to moving into new product lines. So, my friends joke that I'm like the frame king, right? We sell right now almost 10,000 frames every day, right? So it's like almost 2 containers load of frames every single day, right? So we've been doing that for a long time. And now we're trying to focus on what other areas can we expand out into. And I do have to say, like, even as the owner of a business, like, you go through cycles, right? So even like this summer, I was like, I'm not really sure, like I want to keep doing this, or maybe I should sell the business and move on, and maybe I should start like something brand new or something kind of along those lines. So, but then what ended up happening was that I ended up really focusing on this culture and really understanding like how this really impacts the business, and how this can really change the business. And I got like a sort of a new spark, right? So I think that over time, like, the business definitely evolves, but also at the same time too, you have to find things that are interesting in the business, and be curious about the business all the time, to be able to find sort of those new and kind of interesting things. And it goes through waves, right? Like, we had gone through a couple, I didn't explain this in the story, but during COVID times, there was a couple of Amazon aggregators that were very interested in our business, and we ended up getting a very nice offer, a very lucrative offer. We ended up accepting it, but then it ended up falling through at the end. And sometimes I look back, I'm like, oh man, I should have taken that. And right now, I'm like, man, I'm so glad I didn't do that, right? Like, because there was so much more that I should have learned, and I probably would have approached this thing from such a wow, I'm so amazing that I was able to kind of get to this point. And now I realize, like, wow, I just have so much more to learn, and the business has so much more room to evolve, and there's so much more for us to do. So there's always sort of the next phase. But right now, I'm in a phase right now where I'm not like necessarily working all the time. I'm working more like on the business rather than sort of in the business. And so yeah, so it changes and it fluctuates, but I'm always really focused on it. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Question, how do you think you've managed to stay relevant against the competition? Because obviously quite a simple proposition. So how have you managed to evolve it over the 12 years?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So, how do you evolve in that sort of a commodity business, right? So we have a business that is very commodity. So if you think like just general picture frames, right? But what we've actually ended up doing is we've become sort of the premier display company, right? So even just in picture frames, there's so many different areas that I ended up learning as the business kind of evolved, right? So we sell shadow boxes that you can put items in. We sell jersey displays. We have knife displays and sword displays and all sorts of other things that we're selling. So, and now we're adding LED lights to a lot of our products, and we have a couple of really interesting products that I'm not going to reveal right now that if you guys sign up for our newsletter, you'll see in probably in a couple of months. But as a little bit of a hook, but I think that the business. Actually, if you think about it from the outside, you could look at it as like very strictly like a commodity business, and those are some of our like lower margin products. But now we're really focused on what other areas within our business can we design into, and then also now we're moving into a bunch of other products as well. So we recently hired a couple of we have about 4 people on our design team right now, and we're really increasing the number of people on our merchandising team, and trying to find more opportunities and expanding overseas and things along those lines, where some of the offering really isn't as sophisticated as what we currently sell in the U.S. And we're primarily a U.S. business, but Canada and also the 5 major countries in Europe are also pretty relevant for us, and hopefully will be in the future. Yeah.
Hi. 2 related questions about work-life balance. Do you have it? What drives you nowadays? Is it business growth, or is it personal growth, or the 2? And if it's business growth, is it more profit, or is it something different in terms of maybe creativity? And how did the work-life balance changed from 20 employees to 100?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'll address the first question with work-life balance first. So when you first get started, really the business is all encompassing. So if I'm not actually working on the business during the day, I'm thinking about it, right? I feel like I've always wanted to. When I first started the business, there was a lot of VC money that was kind of floating around, that was being invested in a lot of businesses. And everyone said, oh, Giorgio, you have like a lifestyle business, right? So you kind of work 9 to 5, you can kind of work wherever, you can work remotely, like you have a very much of a lifestyle business. And so I've always tried to maintain that lifestyle. Like I don't feel like I've been, I worked much more when I was working in investment banking than when I'm actually working on my business. So it can be very all-consuming, and it also can be very, very challenging too. So the ways that I've been able to kind of cope with that is finding a community of people who are in e-commerce. So I'm a part of a group called E-commerce Fuel. So I can go to them for other advice on topics and things along those lines. Finding a mentor is very important. So like I mentioned, Paul Akers, he's a mentor of mine, someone who's more advanced than I am. And I also have a lot of other mentors, either virtual, people who are on podcasts that I regularly follow, or I know are people who I can reach out to for advice. And then also what I really like to do is I like to mentor younger people, right? So I like to talk to people, because when I'm explaining something or I'm teaching, I'm also learning too. So I've always kind of maintained that framework of finding someone who's more experienced than I am, a group of people who are on the same level as me, and then someone who I'm teaching. And so that to me has been really, really great in terms of trying to figure out how the business business evolves, and then also keeping with like mental health, I would say, like as a very important aspect. I mean, when we had this warehouse issue, like that was a very, very challenging time. I was like living in Los Angeles. I had like one suitcase. I was staying for a couple weeks at a time at the hotel in the LAX airport. Even when I go to LAX right now, I have like flashbacks of when I was like living at the Holiday Inn. I can't remember what hotel it was in the LAX airport, right? So it was like, yeah, it was very, very. There was a lot of challenging moments, but you know, once we kind of got through a lot of that, it really ended up making a really positive difference, I think, on my experience, because now the next challenge that comes along, I'm like, okay, I can accomplish that. Like I can actually like work through that. So yeah. So I think that it's never as good as or as bad as it seems. But I think that having that framework of having a community of people that you can share things with, and then a mentor who you can go to for advice, and then also giving back is very helpful. Did that answer your question, or you?
I still had the one with the 2100.
Oh, okay. Is my work-life balance better now? I would say that it's probably better now, but also at the same time too, I have to be more strategic, right? So in terms of having a work-life balance, like I think that it's less like me sitting down at 9 o'clock to do work. It's more about like, am I making the right decisions? Like, is this person who I'm hiring right now, is this going to be like the right person for the role? Are they going to fit into the culture? Am I wasting my time, you know, sending our employees to Japan to learn about lean culture? Like, is this, you know, it's more about like, it's more about like doing chess, I would say, rather than, I guess like maybe checkers. And it's more about like being strategic with the moves that we're making, and really trying to stay abreast of what's going on out there in the market and where some of the trends are changing and things along those lines, and really kind of elevating the team. So I would say like right now I probably have a pretty good work-life balance. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Giorgio, for sharing your story. I think it's truly inspiring that you did it like on your own and bootstrapped, and also studied psychology. And this is also where my question is heading to, because like especially in the early days, things you're doing don't like bring the results that you're expecting or well hoping for. And sometimes it's probably either because you're doing the wrong things or you're doing the right things, but you need to keep going until something's happening. And what kind of mental models, or so to say, have you developed for yourself or applied to either keep going or like decide, okay, I need to do something different, especially when you're on your own?
Yeah, it's a good question. So actually, I think a lot about that in terms of my psychology degree. And so when I was studying psychology, we were really focused a lot on doing experiments. And with experiments, you have sort of A/B testing, right? So you try one thing and you see what the result is, then you try a second thing and you see what the result is, and then you compare the results and see which one actually works the best, right? So when we were doing our psychological studies, I was like, oh, well, this is something that we're doing. And then I started applying that more towards the e-commerce business, and really focusing on, you know, is the inputs that we're putting into A making a better result, or the inputs putting into B making a better result? And so in terms of mental models right now, I definitely think a lot about the A/B testing, but I also think a lot about whether or not, like, if the outcome isn't what I'm looking for, is my process bad, right? So as opposed to like how am I actually getting something done? And I think what that does is it really shifts something from, oh, wow, this is like happening to me, to, oh, I can fix the problem on my own, and I can change the process. So for example, if I'm not getting the result that I want, maybe there's something wrong with the way that it's set up in the first place, right? Like, let's say one of our accountants, for example, makes a payment to the wrong vendor, right? Or something like that. And I'm like, oh, wow, well, we just, you know, we lost a bunch of money, you made the payment to the wrong vendor. Maybe there's something wrong with the process. So we start looking into why she did that, as opposed to kind of like punishing her or like yelling at her or whatever, right? Which is sort of like the old way of thinking about it. And it's like, oh, well, or just fix the problem, right? It's like, maybe something is wrong with the process. So like, how do we onboard new vendors, right? How do we put their bank account in? How do we make sure that there's a double check versus paying the right person versus the wrong person? So it's really I'm much more focused on process. I'm much more process driven rather than outcome driven, right? So if something is not like working for me, there's definitely something wrong with my process most of the time. So, and then I can always talk about like how to, talk to other people about how I can improve that. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
It is known that first-time founders focus on product, and second and third-time founders focus on process.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the thing.
no, for sure. I mean, maybe I'm a second time. I mean, I'm, doing this for 13 years, so.
It's
Yeah.
the 5-generation business ownership.
Yeah.
Hi. Out of all of the things that you could sell online, what drew you to art?
That's a very good question. I really didn't have any passion in art at all. I just thought that I just really wanted just to decorate my place and make it look nice. And I thought that art was just expensive. So I thought there was I guess you could say like an arbitrage opportunity there to sell something that was like a little bit cheaper. But now I start to realize like I really think that selling like a very high quality product at a premium is actually the best thing that you can do. And that's a little bit in terms of the way that we're focused on. I spoke with some aspiring Irish entrepreneurs last week, and he wanted to sell boxing gloves for MMA and for boxing. And then he was like, you know what, I want to sell the same quality as like the top guys, but cheaper. And I'm like, well, why don't you sell the same price as everyone else, but better, right? Can you make it better than everybody else? And that really changed like the framework a little bit because you are very focused on buying. I mean, we are in general. Sometimes we buy cheap things, right? But if something is really good, right, maybe you're willing to pay a little bit of a premium. So I didn't really have like the right mindset initially. And I like to share that part of the story because I honestly, when I first got started, I had no idea what I was doing. I was so lost. And it was really just by doing and then finding people who were able to kind of advise me in the right way. And now I try to steer people in the right direction to learn more about sort of where the market's headed, because especially now with China, like there's just so much cheap junk out there, right? So how do you really differentiate yourself? And I think that a lot of that is in the type of product that you're manufacturing, and also in the quality too. So, and brand is important too. So yeah.
Thank you.
Qualitatively speaking, that you're a multi-generational business owning, excuse me, legacy. What has been the relationship with your family, with your father, who's been a small business owner? What do they think of your success?
Yeah.
Have you been able to share your challenges and actually learn something, even though your business is scaled to a much larger size?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my dad and I have a very close relationship, personal level, but then also with business too. I initially started working in his office, so I had one desk in his office. And for me, it was really great because at that point, I could go to him and ask him questions about how to set up a business and what I should do here and there. What happened is that probably like 2 to 3 years into the business, I started asking him questions, and then I started realizing that he didn't know, right? And it wasn't like, and it's not to his, it's to his credit. He was really trying to help me the best that he could, but he also had a different business than I did. And so I realized, like, I was like, oh wow, like I'm at a point now where I need to go out and find other people who know what they're doing, who are ahead of me in the game, that I can find that information now. And so that's kind of where I am. In terms of the relationship, like I love working with my family. I mean, I love my family, but I love also like working with my family and spending time with them and kicking ideas around. I think it's great. So sometimes I'm involved in things like that with my side projects and things along those lines. Like we're importing some olive oil now from Europe into the U.S. and we're doing a project with my little sister and with my dad right now. So we're still involved in a couple of different projects. I mean, the business right now, the way that it is, it's like there's no one in my family who's strictly involved in the business right now. But yeah, it definitely is something that has tied us together. And certainly in challenging moments, it's definitely brought us together. So yeah, it's good question.
Thank you.
Real quick, last one.
I feel like work and being a business owner is always a massive mirror to yourself and showing things that perhaps you didn't know about yourself and exposing various things. I'm just curious, what is it that being a business owner has taught you about yourself that you wouldn't have learned otherwise?
Wow. Okay. What is the business? I think that's a great question. I think that it's an incredible opportunity for self-discovery. The business has really taken me to places that I never thought I would have ever gone. Otherwise, I mean, I've been able to travel around the world for work. When Trump was president the first time, he put tariffs on China, and I said, you know what? I'm going to find a manufacturer in Vietnam, and I'm just going to go. I'm just basically what I did was I just got on an airplane and I just said, I'm going to find a manufacturer of our product in Vietnam, and I'm not going to leave until I find one. So I literally got a one-way ticket. Ended up spending 2 weeks in Vietnam. Met a manufacturer that we still work with today, where we sell we manufacture our flag cases in Vietnam, actually, and a couple of other products. And so the opportunities that having a business has afforded me has really been amazing. In terms of learning about myself, like definitely I think that the challenges were really great. Like I saw a lot of my colleagues at the bank where I was working, and not that the bank was bad in any respect. It really was just like not, I would say, like a good fit. So I felt that like the growth that I would have experienced was not like the fit that I really wanted to experience. And I think that I was looking at some of the, the more senior people who were vice presidents or executive directors, and they were still like doing PowerPoints and editing things late at night. And I said like, you know what, like, oh man, I don't want to work here for another 10 years and do that, right? That's not something that is like really like for, really for me. And I felt that a lot of people there just weren't, they on the outside, they all looked like really, really content, but on the inside, they were all like very, very, they were all really struggling. And so for me, I just wanted to do something a little bit different. And yeah, it's been an amazing vehicle to learn a lot about myself and also learn a lot about just how the world works and interact with so many people. It's such an amazing excuse to be able to meet so many incredible people. Like I wouldn't have met Tarek or wouldn't have met anyone else here if it weren't for this opportunity. So it's been really, really, really great overall. And yeah, I would encourage it for everyone. So yeah.
Giorgio, thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.